Welcome to Variant, where we love comics more than I can't wait to see Thanos fight the Avengers on the big screen. I'm your host, Arris. As we all know, Thor Ragnarok hit theaters in the US this weekend, so as I do with all comic book movies, I'm here to give you my spoiler-free thoughts. I'll probably do a spoiler-free episode in a future live stream here on the channel. With that said, I thought this movie was really good. It's not by any means my favorite Marvel Studios movie. I wouldn't even put it in my top 5. For those of you who are curious of what my top 5 is, it's probably Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the first Iron Man, and Captain America Winter Soldier. Anyway, with that said, Thor Ragnarok was still a solid movie, I thought. Definitely the best out of all the Thor movies, but that's probably not a good comparison, as the first two Thor movies are widely known as the weakest of all the MCU movies. But this film is definitely not weak. It's extremely fun and entertaining, and the movie punches you right in the face right from the start. The first 10 minutes of the film is actually my favorite part of the movie, because we just see Thor go to town with his hammer, and it's downright incredible. This movie also gives us a way more comedic Thor. It's extremely different from anything we've seen of Thor thus far in the MCU. The movie is straight up an action comedy, even going as far as slapstick comedy at times, which I personally think is one of the movie's downsides, but I'll talk about that in a second. But that only happens on several occasions, because overall, I really enjoyed the lighthearted comedic aspect. You can really tell that the MCU was experimenting with this film and trying to see how they can make Thor work in a solo movie, and I think they're partially on the right track. Although I will say I personally wish the movie would have taken itself a little more serious at times. The excessive comedy, especially slapstick comedy, was one of the movie's downsides, I thought. I just personally think there was moments that would have been more impactful if they would have just left a silly gag or joke out. At least with the main characters like Thor, Hulk, and Loki, and leave the joking to Korg, who was freaking awesome, by the way. He was hands down one of my favorite parts of the movie. Not saying I don't think main characters should joke. I love lightheartedness and superheroes joking around. That was one of my main complaints with Batman vs Superman. There was no happiness in it. It was all gloom and doom like all the time. I'm just saying you have to find the right balance like many other Marvel movies have done. But again, don't get me wrong, this movie was hilarious and I really enjoyed it. I'm just giving you guys my honest opinion since that's why you guys are watching. But as for positives, you know what one of my favorite parts of this movie was? Hella. Cate Blanchett killed it. She was such a good villain and a massive threat to Thor. Like, she made Thor look freaking weak, which says something because Thor had some extremely powerful moments in this film. As for the Hulk, he was awesome and extremely funny. I love that we finally got to see him speak in broken sentences. And the fact that his vocabulary was pretty much like a 5-year-old was genius. Also, seeing the Hulk in full-on gladiator armor going toe-to-toe with Thor was great. Now, some of what I'm about to say some people might think is a spoiler, but it really doesn't have to do with the plot of the film. But I just figured I'd warn you guys anyway. Ultimately, I just wish there was more Gladiator Hulk in the movie. They literally just took the Gladiator Hulk concept from the Planet Hulk story and used it for one scene, which was kind of a letdown. They did take other elements from the comic like Korg, Meek, and being on planet Sakaar, but that's about it. Now obviously there's a lot more I could talk about with this movie, like Valkyrie, his whole story was really cool, Loki and his relationship with his dad and brother, and Easter eggs like Beta Ray Bill's face being on the Grandmaster's tower. But I'm gonna save getting into that when we can talk to you guys directly here on a YouTube live video at the channel. And then I'll rant about the movie for 20 or 30 minutes or so, and even answer your guys' questions of what I thought about certain things in the movie. But for now, just know I really liked the movie. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it's one of the better MCU movies in my humble opinion, and hands down the best Thor movie. And now we patiently wait for Black Panther and Infinity War. And man, I cannot wait. Before I wrap up today's episode, I just want to thank the people who made today's episode possible, Domain.com. When you buy a domain name from Domain.com, you get the power to influence and control what people find when they search for you online. No domain extension will help you tell your story like a .com or .net domain name. Domain.com is affordable, reliable, and easy to use. The guys at Domain.com give Variants an awesome offer. Get 15% off Domain.com's already affordable domain names and web hosting when you use the coupon code VARIANT at checkout. So when you think domain names, think Domain.com.